We'll add in a couple of minutes. Just make sure you have a lot of questions for him. I'm looking for the questions, so make sure you post in the comments and everything, and I will check on it. And give me a few minutes. All right, guys. So basically, I'm gonna start now. Basically, what we're trying to do is KualaLumpurJS always been a physical meetup. So this is the first time we try to go online. Just make sure you have a lot of questions for him. I'm looking for the questions. So okay, let me do something. So, yeah. Basically, we're trying to go on online. So we're trying out with the Supabase. So this is new as well. We'll probably get a feedback later on. How is it going for you guys? Whether we prefer something different than StreamYard, or this would be a good way of doing it, and stuff like that. You can view this on Facebook and also YouTube. So just feel free to comment. I will just scroll your comment and everything. And other than that, we also partnering with DevKami. DevKami is just an organization where they do online broadcast or content, any content type related content. You can find us on devkami.ny, I think, and then /meetups. And then there'll be, if you go devkami.ny/meetups, there'll be a lot of all the meetups happening in KL or probably Singapore as well. So you can check that as well. So with that, I think I pretty much like done talk what I wanted to talk. So I don't see any comments yet, so maybe later on. Okay. Anything else? And also let us know what kind of speaker you want, what kind of topics you want. We probably like gonna change the how the format is, because since we're going online, I don't think we're gonna be physical anytime soon. So this is today as well. We finally get freedom. So I hope everyone like enjoying your freedom, but still keeping it safe and everything, and stay safe. And with that, I'm gonna introduce the first speaker. I hope it's ready. So what happened is Copper has been going viral and trending on the news Combinator news and everything. It's part of the one news Combinator as well. Basically for the startups. So he also have a pretty much a packed full day. Even after this, he couple of events, so he probably pretty much exhausted after this. And just feel free how Supabase work, and everything is open source, and it's basically an alternative for the Firebase. And he's also a former CTO of co-founder for ServisHero. So if you're, pretty much all Malaysian know what ServisHero is about, right? And yeah, anything related to tech, startups, Nimbus. Nimbus is another startup that he co-founded as well. You can ask him, and how JavaScript is involved, how in JavaScript you can ask him technical question as well. So yeah, let's welcome Couple. So I'm going to add him, so he will carry on, and I will check out your questions.
Yeah, hey everyone. Thanks for joining, and thanks to Kevin for organizing all this. And as he said, just as a really brief intro for myself, I'm a techie. I've been building tech for about 15 years now. Originally, I'm from New Zealand, but I moved to Malaysia 5 years ago now for ServisHero when it launched. I was one of the co-founders with Carl and Jason and a couple of others. We built ServisHero using mostly Node.js, and also, we built our apps as well using JavaScript at the start as well. About 2 years ago, I moved to Singapore. 2.5 years ago, I moved to Singapore, and I started another business with a friend, which is sort of an office management platform. And it serves customers like Gucci and Spotify and Stripe. And that one as well is all built with JavaScript and Node.js, a little bit of Elixir. And then within that company, I started my current company, which is called Supabase. Supabase is a open source alternative to Firebase, or at least it will be. So it started within Nimbus to solve a problem that we had with Firebase, but actually we only really started it this year. So the timeline has been since January. We raised some funds, a small amount of funds from some angel investors here in Singapore. Then we started working on the platform in March. We then got into YC, I think in April. And then usually what happens with YC is you keep it under wraps and you build for 3 months. And then at the end, you do a launch via the YC network, and they put you in TechCrunch. They help you with a launch. But actually, last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago now, a developer found us, and he posted on Hacker News, and that went quite well. We were on the front page for over a day, and there are a lot of comments. If you dig it up, you'll be able to find it. The title was just Supabase YC S20, an open source Firebase alternative. And yeah, since then, basically, we went from just I think at that stage we had maybe around 100 alpha customers, and now we are in the thousands, and we have thousands of servers now, lots of Postgres databases, which will soon cost us a lot of money, no doubt. But right now, yeah, it's okay. We've got the support of YC, so we're just trying to make sure that we can scale it. So the long-term goal, the tech stack behind it, in fact, I can actually just show you. I think I can share my screen here. Easier with 2 monitors. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. I don't know if anyone can comment. Can you guys see this? Can anyone comment my screen? Yeah, nice. Thanks. So basically, we are shooting towards Firebase, but by this stage, because we're so nascent, we still have a lot to build. But we're getting there really quick. From the start menu, you basically can create an organization. I have a few, and from here, you can start a project just by going new project. I've already created one, and what happens when you create the project is it'll spin up in the background a full Postgres database, plus a whole bunch of APIs, some interfaces, everything that you might need to interact with your database. And I'll show you how very soon. So just to prove that this is a Postgres database, you can run it and you'll actually start querying your database directly. So you can see here is a Postgres 12. But then we have a bunch of templates. For example, maybe you want to see all the plugins, the extensions that are listed on your database. And we've actually got quite a few installed for you. So if you're not familiar with Postgres, don't worry, just we'll be making it really, really easy to get started with Postgres. And you'll see that really soon. I'll jump back here to templates and I'll show you what I mean. If here, I'll go create a table, which I'll call to-dos. And I'll just run that. And it'll create the table. And then I also have this little quick start template. This one, actually, we were going to do a migration tool from Airtable into Supabase, but that was when things started going crazy. So we haven't quite had the time to build it. So this is what we've got right now. If you click on this, it will fill this text box with sort of a table that populates it with countries and continents. I'll just run that, even though it says an error, don't worry, we'll fix that. I just couldn't launch before this. I couldn't ship it before this, so it's not actually an error, but right now you'll be thinking, oh, you know, we've run all these, what has it really done? And I'll jump in here, and now you can see that I've got some API documentation. Now, the unique thing about what we've got is this API documentation is auto-generated from your database. So here you can see I've got tables and views. I've got these two tables that I just created. One's called countries, one called to-dos. I can click in here and you can see it's got all the fields with the types that were associated with them. And if I jump in here, you'll see actually it's even got little descriptions. And that's because you can add comments to a column or to a table within Postgres. And we'll actually expose these comments via your API. Can you zoom in the screen? Ah, yes, sorry, maybe I can, is that better? I hope that's okay. So now you can see that you can see these two tables, countries and to-dos, and then because of the comments that were associated to each of the tables and the columns, they'll actually get exposed here. And the other thing is that now we actually I haven't completely built this, but we're doing it now. This code is actually the code that you need to just copy and paste, and you're up and running. So if I copied this and I put it into my JavaScript app, this would actually select all the countries from the countries table. Here you can see I've got it with pagination, so I can actually do a select everything just from range 0 to 10. And then we actually then have this other thing, which is really neat, and this is the really distinguishing feature. We're not just Postgres, we're actually a real-time Postgres. So you can subscribe to any changes within this table. Let's say someone inserts a new country and you wanted to listen to that insert. You can copy this code, put it in your JavaScript app, and then anytime a new country is inserted or updated, you'll actually get this notification directly in your app. This one obviously probably isn't so useful for countries, but like to-dos, for example, if you're building a to-do list and you want to know, especially a collaborative to-do list, I think I might even have one. No, I'll try to drop one in the chat later, but we've even built like a global collaborative to-do list where it listens to all the new to-dos that get introduced, and they just appear on the app. So if you're building something like I don't know, Trello or anything real time, Slack clone, we've got code for Slack clones, anything real time, you can really utilize this. One caveat, we are in alpha, so we're building out our authentication and in particular our authorization, which will use Postgres row-level security. So it's got this very basic stuff. So we don't recommend using this for production until we actually finish this up. The other really neat thing about our APIs is even though it looks like REST, you can actually do deep nesting. So anyone who's seen GraphQL before, you can actually do exactly the same. So here is an example where I'm selecting from the films table, and I'm selecting the title. And then I also know that there might be an association to the directors table, and I can select the ID and last name. And this is all just happening under the cover. You don't have to set up any schemas or anything. Your database is your schema. We just expose it all, and our documentation will automatically generate all of this. So we're getting to a point where we'll even generate these deep nestings for you. So you can literally just keep coming in, copy, paste, put it in your app, and that's pretty cool. Okay, so here is the query editor. You can run whatever code you want. Underneath this is literally just the Postgres database. And we don't care what you do with that Postgres database. You can come in here under your settings, and we'll show you you can literally connect to it. I don't know, I use dbeaver, you might use pgadmin, something else. You can connect to it from here using the settings. You have to put a password when you first set it up, and you don't even have to use our dashboard. But one of the things that we realized was that actually using Postgres, a lot of people loved it, but they just found it too difficult. So we even just want to make the experience seamless, and you can then land on our dashboard and start interacting with your database immediately. Now, where we are going with this as well is where it's getting exciting is more along the lines of the table view. This one, I'm just going to call out the warning here. This one is really an alpha, so it's going to break, but we just like to ship it because we don't care. We see the breaks, and also we get a lot of feedback from this little widget up here. So if you're using it and you see something's broken or you can recommend something, you can literally just drop some code in here. It'll appear on our Slack, and we'll probably follow up with you, or we'll create a GitHub issue. You can create a GitHub issue yourself, and we'll fix it up as soon as we can. But here in the table view, here's the countries that I just created. And if you have ever used Airtable, then this is essentially where we're going with it. You actually will have a full Airtable-like interface. You even have, for example, we can do some sorting on the name and the continent, and I apply that sort, and you can see now all of these are sorted by name and then by continent. Or I can come in and I can switch around this sorting and apply that, and it reorders it by continent then name. As well, we can do filtering. This one's a little bit buggy on this version, but the next one we release it is much better. So let's do greater than or equals to 200, and then we've got all the IDs greater than 200. So we've got a lot of stuff coming in this release coming up this week, which should fix a few bugs in here. The other thing that I want to call out, I don't actually have a, I wonder if I can show you our Figma. On my Figma. Just because we haven't released it, but it's actually coming, it should be there tomorrow or the next day. Because Postgres has this really cool thing. If you've never used it before and you've only used a document database, then you probably are really familiar with document columns, but you're not so familiar with these like tabular columns, relational columns. But Postgres has both, essentially. This is what makes it an awesome database. You can actually set up any column as a JSON or JSON-B column, and if you don't know, then you should probably use JSON-B. Oh, sorry, I just saw a comment. This seems like a standalone Phoenix app. Is that correct? If so, what is the recommended way of adding business logic? Actually, the real-time aspect is the Elixir app. So it's actually many different components. We use Postgres for our RESTful APIs. We use our own bespoke real-time server. And actually, I'll show it to you guys because it's going to be useful if you can do it. Supabase, real-time. If you want, check out GitHub. We've got a lot of repos, but you can see this is probably our most, most popular, our real-time app. And the way it works is basically, you can see in here, we've got, hopefully this is, that's not going to work, but what we did, we had a problem in my previous startup where actually Firebase doesn't scale so well. Yes, it's all open source. Everything that we have is open source, except for our dashboard right now, just because it's got some security things that we need to patch up. So the way that this works, I'll show you in this, is that when you've got a Postgres database, in fact, you've got two Postgres databases, you can set up this thing called logical replication between them, and they will literally spin up code between each. So what we did was actually, we created an Elixir server. So we'll remove this one. And then this essentially makes the database think that we are another database, and it sends a replication stream here. And this is all in like binary data. Yeah, this isn't entirely accurate, but high level, this is how it works. It sends binary data via something called the write-ahead log. And then this server is actually a Phoenix. If you've ever used Elixir, there's a framework called Phoenix, and it's pretty amazing. We use Phoenix and all the Elixir underneath. We have several gen servers. This takes the binary log and then it converts it into JSON. So at this point, it becomes JSON. And then from here, because Phoenix is extremely scalable with WebSockets, you can have lots of different clients subscribing to all the different WebSockets. And really, we haven't tested it yet, but Phoenix is pretty good on a single server. You know, they benchmark up to 2 million connections. So we'll actually get to a stage where you can scale these. You might have one database. You might want to scale these to have multiple, and they'll tie up together. and then it'll distribute the load across multiple different servers. And that releases the load on your server, and you just have one read from your server, and it's blasting out all the changes via the WebSockets. Cool. So that one's actually a good tie-in. So I can show you where we're going with the app. I'll jump over to, I did have Figma. That's it. Just back to the tables, basically what we've got, because you've got JSON data, if you've ever used Firestore before, hopefully this is going to be big enough for you guys. If you've ever used Firestore before, they actually, which is a Firebase document database, they actually have a really cool way of editing JSON data. So we'll also mimic that in case you just want to migrate, say, from Firebase to Postgres. You can just create JSON-B columns, and then we'll give you a very familiar interface. So from here, you might have a JSON column like this, and then you can click into it. And from here, you can start querying your JSON data and editing your JSON data. This is actually going to be coming out this week, a very basic version of this, and we'll be iterating on it. So if you're keen, play around with it. Yeah, cool. The next thing to talk about that's coming out at some stage is really building upon this real-time aspect. Because of the way it's structured, we can do some quite cool things. You can actually subscribe to very granular levels. Hopefully you can see this. So, for example, here I will subscribe to the users table. Here I'll subscribe to only the public schema. The whole public schema. And here I'm subscribing to everything that happens in my database. Postgres, you can have multiple different schemas. You could have a public, you can have a private, you can do whatever you want. And so here you can actually listen to all the changes. Now this opens up quite a few cool things for what we're building. If you've ever used like an event sourcing system, we'll actually be bringing this out as well after we've done auth. This might be the next feature that we sort of target if there's enough interest for it. And basically, you'll be able to listen to you'll be able to create different events. So here, I've got a fictional database. This is just a mock-up, but I can listen to all events, all inserts, all updates on my database, maybe just on the schema level, or maybe down to a row level. At a table level, we can even do a row level, a column level. You can subscribe to, say, all messages with ID equals 3, or with group chat ID equals 3. We can do these column type or row type subscriptions. You'll drag them on, and then you can actually drag little actions on as well. And this kind of, if you know Zapier or something like that, we're essentially baking it into our real-time server, and then all these connectors. So someone was asking, how do you handle your business logic? And actually, Hasura do it very differently. I think just today, by the way, Hasura is a great tool. It really is worth checking out. So they do things via GraphQL, and they're targeting remote schemas. Very much they're bundling a lot into their middleware. And so they're kind of moving up the stack. For us, we're really moving down the stack into the database, and we're trying to leverage the database as much as possible. We have some quite cool things that will come out via the database in terms of migrations, really writing in even functions into your database. Within our Postgres databases, you can actually write functions via JavaScript. You can write Python functions directly into your database. And you can call these over the RESTful API or using the client library. So that's how we're going to leverage some of these things. Basically, then you'll be able to push events out and chain events together. We've been chatting to some people. They also need sort of time delays and things like that. But we'll very much get to the stage where we'll do a kind of like an event sourcing system. And you can send to queues or external services, whatever your choice is, basically. So this will be coming out in the future. I think from there, I'll jump back into here. The only other thing to point out is that we actually, this is very basic, one of the first things we built. but we will be exposing even your database will have a RESTful API. We're building it now. And that means, like, for example, if you want to create tables on the fly, you know, from your front end or something like that, you'll be able to actually create those tables. So here are the two tables that I've got. We haven't actually exposed much functionality except some display functionality. But it's really important that we get to this sort of meta API for our databases, because we'll be using Postgres's native row-level security for our authentication system. So within the roles, Postgres has this thing where every user, you can have roles which can be users. It's basically just a general concept. A role can be a user. Users can inherit from roles. Roles can inherit from roles. And it means that you could set up, for example, a database user for every single user in your database. Hopefully that's clear, because it's a bit confusing. I realize if you've got like a table called users and then database users. But we'll make it really intuitive. We're just working through it now. And the idea is that you then, when you come in, let's say the Postgres user, or let's say you have a new one, then you actually assign different permissions. They might only be able to access, you know, all the chats which they belong to, or all the organizations which they belong to. And the quite cool thing about that is you don't end up having to do where user ID equals this. You can do, for example, select everything from organizations. And if they're logged in with that user, then it'll only return the data that they actually have access to. So it's kind of similar to Firebase in that regard, but yeah, it's really baked into Postgres. So we're just trying to make sure that we can really nail this auth. It's our most requested feature. If you go through our launch post on Hack News, then you'll see probably 50% of the comments are asking for auth. Yeah. The final thing is that there are a bunch of extensions. Yeah, Postgres has these awesome things. They're kind of like plugins, and they really do a lot of cool stuff. So, for example, you want a unit test in your database, we've got an extension here. Here, I was talking about you want to write Python code within your functions. Then you can even write that here. We've got, yeah, CoffeeScript. We've got JavaScript. We've got PostGIS built in. If you've ever used Postgres and you want to query like geographical data, PostGIS is like the de facto plugin to use. It's really popular and it's amazing. We'll actually be working quite closely with the Postgres team to implement some of the functionality for PostGIS within Supabase itself. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. I won't go through them all, but check them out. They're fun to turn them on, play with them. As soon as you turn these on, they'll actually end up running a bunch of, they will create a whole bunch of stored procedures and functions in your database. And then from there, you can actually call the stored procedures via our API again. So here's the code. For example, if you want to restart the RESTful server, which we need to do sometimes, you can actually do it via your library. As well, you can just call it, I haven't put the code in, but yeah, it's just a REST API, so you can call it via Bash. And at the moment, we only have JavaScript as our libraries, but we're building up more, or we will build up more. So for the future, if you have ever used Firebase, then will extensions be compatible with managed? So actually, our databases are standalone databases. They so Aurora have a very strictly defined set. Each of the managed databases have their own set of extensions which they have turned on, basically. For us, we probably provide the most that I can find out of anyone. And in fact, if you even just want to get started with Postgres, then you can check out our Postgres. Once again, we're open source. Everything's open source. We have a bunch of plugins already installed. If you want to get started with Postgres and you've never done it before, we've got these Docker image so you can get started with it. We're on DigitalOcean. We've got an image in the AWS marketplace. Also, the one that I just showed you, we're putting them in the marketplaces, the real time. So You can install that, connect it to your Aurora. As long as they have replication enabled, this will work. The documentation is a little bit dated on this, so we'll update it this week when we get the marketplace images out. But yeah, it really depends for Aurora, for RDS, for all the managed services. It depends on what they've got enabled. And actually, there's one more thing for this. We require you to basically have publication access. I think if you're using GCP, even on their managed service, it won't work. I can't remember why, but I think it's because the user doesn't have publication access. So this is another reason why we actually started without wanting to do hosted ourselves for the first 2 months. But basically, no one was offering just a pure Postgres database beneath it. So we do that. If you want to use us just for databases, then that's great. And we are working on doing all the backups. We're going to do replication. So if you want to put a database in Singapore and you want to put one in New York close to your customers, we'll do that as well. You can literally just spin them up all around the world. So I think that's pretty much it. If you guys want, I can talk through what we use in terms of our stack across everything. It's all pretty much JavaScript except for our Elixir app. We use pretty much all JavaScript. We use Next.js here on the front end. Next.js is really good. It's got sort of this isomorphic type functionality where you can actually do server-side code and client code. Was important for us at the start because of the security concerns. And then finally, we use Cloudflare, we use DigitalOcean, we're using AWS for a few things. Everything's containerized. We don't use Kubernetes, but we probably will in the future because we have so many customers spinning up our databases, or at least spinning up API servers. So yeah, at the moment we're very nascent. A funny story actually, when we launched on Hacker News, they don't recommend that you do this, but we use Docker Compose to tie together all our different components. And in fact, if you're trying to get started with installing Supabase, it's a bit fragmented now. We don't really have an all-in-one solution for you just to install. That's because there are many moving parts. We support many other open source tools. So it was quite funny at the start. We just used Docker Compose to tie all these things together. And on our own database, on our own computers locally, we use Docker Compose. And then you can do this thing, Docker Machine, where you spin up a Docker Compose. And actually for our alpha customers, they really don't recommend this, but we spun up a Docker Machine in DigitalOcean or AWS, just one big one. And then we actually just did a Docker Compose up on the Docker Machine. And so it literally is just a Docker Compose, not a Docker Swarm or anything like that. And it's this one server. And when all the Hacker News stuff started, it literally just, it dealt with it. So yeah, to this day, I'm still trying to patch everything. We're trying to deploy everything now using ECS, but it's all operating on one big Docker Compose Docker machine. So either Docker Compose is pretty good, or we have maybe that's good proof that Supabase can scale, because the tech, we dog food everything. Everything that you would use when you use Supabase is what we use ourselves to build Supabase. So I guess there's a testimonial if you need one. Okay, so I'll go through some of the questions. When is it estimated to be production ready? Yeah, this one, it's really dependent on the auth. So our aim, I really hate, I guess you guys are techies, you'll know this, giving timelines is just something that you probably should never do. But basically, we will aim to do it before the end of before the end of our YC batch, which is now, 70 days from now. If we can do it by then and have a really nice system, then we will be production ready for our database and for our client libraries. So that will be really nice. We have a few other things that, of course, we won't have feature parity with Firebase. There will be several other features that we need to work on. So the ones that we will work on, for example, are the storage, authentication, identities, the real-time database with sort of sussed, but yeah, the replication, the scaling, all these sort of things. So probably once we do auth, we'll go into beta. Okay, what is the rate limit for read-write requests? Yeah, actually, so at this stage, for example, we've got someone doing, I don't know, 30,000 requests a day. We don't rate limit you, and it's actually been good because they've been crashing the servers, so we've been fixing bugs for them, and they'll come to us and just tell us. We literally just give you a server at this stage where you can go for your life on the server. You can use it as much as you want, and use your database as much as you want. You can max it out. So we don't know how we'll price in the future. We don't really like the idea of this API per API call, just because of this reason. Like sometimes you just spike, or sometimes you don't even know how much you're going to use, and we think it's a bit unfair if you especially spike up and then you have to pay for another top tier, and that happens really frequently on Firebase. Of course, Firebase have a free tier. We want to have a free tier as well. We don't have as deep pockets as Google, so we just need a lot of community support and probably just a lot of patience, which everyone so far has been really good. Even when their servers are crashing, or we've hit, our cloud limits, I think now 4 times. So everyone's been really patient and just waiting for us and coming back to us if they need increased capacity. We will actually get you on a bigger server if you need it. But at the moment, basically, everyone has one DigitalOcean droplet for their database and one DigitalOcean droplet for their API server. So this one's question for speaker. Product sounds great. Sounds like a front end for Postgres, very tightly coupled. Are you intentionally targeting Postgres, or has it just been the quickest way to get started? No, we are very intentionally targeting Postgres. I myself had this problem where I had to migrate from Firebase to a different database. Postgres is just kind of the gold standard in terms of, they have a lot of tooling around it. There's one tool in particular that we really could not do without. It's called Postgres. I don't know if I can share my screen again, but we could not have done it without Postgres. Check it out, postgres.org. This basically, you put it in front of if you know PostgreSQL or anything, then basically this will introspect your Postgres database and it will create all the RESTful APIs. So we work quite closely with these guys. We write the client libraries on the front end for it. We do the real-time aspect, which they don't do. But this is what we use in our stack, and really, it's an amazing tool. I've used it for a couple of years. If you check out my blog, I've got a post from 2018, I think, in Nimbus using it. It's really amazing. So besides that, Postgres has some things that will blow your mind when we start releasing them, down to the row level security is great. The plugin functionality is amazing. You can write different languages within the functions. Yeah, the replication is next to none. The upgrade path, you can use the replication, so you can literally just spin up a new server and replicate all your data to the new version. So really, there's just a bunch of stuff in there that makes it incredible. And also then, besides all the tooling around it, there are a bunch of other things which you might want to do yourself. We can't necessarily do them because of licensing, but for example, Timescale is a great time series plugin which you might want to install. yeah, if you've ever used Cockroach, they're also, which is kind of like a serverless database. They're also Postgres compatible, and it just seems like there's a huge surge in Postgres. So yeah, we just wanted to make sure we can assist the community in that way, and that's why we chose Postgres. Bill short comment, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I think that's all from my side in terms of, yeah, unless you guys have any more questions, or if you want to know about YC or startups in general in Singapore. I know you guys are all in Malaysia. If you've got any questions around that, I'm happy to answer any.
Yeah, Cooper, you can go on talking about like a bit how's the startup scene in Singapore, and also the YC. How to actually you end up in the YC itself.
Yeah, so YC. I'm sure everyone knows what YC is, and that it's like really tricky to get in. Actually, my co-founder has applied for YC, I think 5 times. He got an interview once, and he just made a deal sort of with himself that he'd apply every single time, no matter what. So yeah, this time we were just really lucky. Basically, the process was you apply, you do this sort of you do this demo video. Which maybe I can share at some point. I think it's actually on our dev community post. If you go to our website, down the bottom are some links to our Twitter, our dev community, our GitHub, all these things. So you can find all the videos and stuff there. Basically, we did the video, then you do an online application. And what they don't tell you is that probably if you're a Southeast Asian co-founder or business, they'll actually usually they only do a 10-minute interview, but actually they'll call you in advance if you're in Southeast Asia, I think just to do like sort of a sanity check on your business, make sure it's going to be worthwhile to fly you over, because they actually fly everyone to the Bay Area to do the actual interviews. So we did our first interview, a 5-minute one with a guy, Jared Friedman, who's been really good. He's actually our partner now. And then from there, we also did a whole bunch of mock interviews, and these are really important. If you guys are going to do some YC applications, just reach out to anyone who's done a interview before. I'm happy to help out. If you guys ever get in and are applying and get accepted for an interview, I'll be happy to help do a mock interview with you. Now the interview itself, usually, as I said, they'll fly you over, but actually this batch is unique in that we are all remote, fully remote. So yeah, even the interview was when COVID was kicking off. So we did a 10-minute interview via Zoom. It was very difficult to actually convey everything in 10 minutes via Zoom. They do these things like they suggest, you know, when you usually, if you've ever seen them in a video, they're very rapid fire. They talk, and then they don't stop. They barely take a breath. And this is how the interviews work. But actually with Zoom, they say, make a point, and then pause, give them time to respond. So actually, you know, it's very difficult. You don't know if they're going to respond.
You can't even see their reaction, right?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
That's the tricky part.
So the funny thing is, they also say, oh, if you get in, we'll give you a call. We'll tell you in person. And if you don't get in, we'll send you an email with some feedback. The next day, I just didn't check my email. And I just went for a walk around, and they hadn't called. So, and then I got a call from my co-founder, and he said, oh, yeah, I checked my emails. And so I was thinking, oh, no, we got an email, we didn't get in. And then he said, yeah, it went to a spam folder, so he missed it for a couple of hours, but he checked his email, and sure enough, we got in. And yeah, so since then, as soon as you get in, they set up a few videos where you can meet and badge. We've been doing Zoom calls. It's surprisingly big. There's 400 in our call last night. There were 450 people. So it's quite large, the batches now. And the time zones, they don't really care that you're in Singapore at this stage. So like I've got a phone call tonight from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. And that'll be all this week. I've got these sort of things. So Yeah, that's pretty much the process as you've seen. You do a lot of applications, you do the video interviews, you get in, and then usually, yeah, you start straight away.
So the main point is like basically the interviews, mock interviews. That's like additional points for you to get through the YC, is it?
Yeah, the mock interviews are really just the practice. So actually, there are a few things that they'll definitely target in these chats, and the more people you talk to, they'll hone down on this. But basically, they want to know about market size, they want to know about your traction so far, they want to know about the problem solution, and they want to know about the team. These four things are like quite critical. So having good ways to answer them, yeah, and the only way to actually know that you're going to answer them well is to chat to many different people, because they end up asking these questions in quite difficult ways. The way that we got into the interview, and Michael, the CEO of YC, he actually asked a question which we had not even heard. It's basically, all right, it's 10 years from now, you're extremely successful, you're making $100 million a year. What does your product look like? And this is, yeah, we hadn't even practiced for this, so it's just about sort of answering in a way that you already have prepared for, without seeming like it's going to be forced into one of your prepared answers.
So basically, it's like the 10% will be the luck. What kind of question they're going to ask you to?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I think we have one question, like, any timeline expected milestone of releases for your? Yep.
Yeah, I mentioned this. I mean, our main thing is just our auth system.
Yeah.
So our first iteration of the auth, we're hoping to get it done by our YC demo day. That's all. I mean, I won't really commit to any other timelines, just because, yeah, we're a small team and we're just shipping as fast as we can now, and we've just got a lot to do. But by the way, guys, we're open source, and we're really, really open to you guys engaging with us. If you want, I'll chuck you in our Slack channel as a single channel guest. If you want to help out with any of our libraries, anything we're building, we'll help you help us, basically. So as long as you're really autonomous and you can choose something that you want. One of our interns joined us and started working for free, and he now works full time for us, paid, because he just wanted to build a Rust client for us. And actually, just probably in 15 minutes, he's going to launch it on Hacker News, the Rust client. But yeah, he just decided he wanted to help. He joined our Slack. He's a beast. He now helps us do everything. So yeah, if you want to help out, we're really happy for any of the community to contribute.
Yeah, I'm sure pretty much like most of the people, developers here, like there's a lot of tech groups. So I'm pretty sure that everyone like trying to like want to contribute, help out. Cool. So, and yeah, how long actually it took you to come this phase, like from the beginning, from scratch, from the ideation to all the way to this alpha stage?
Yeah, actually, so the platform that you see, you know, the sort of Firebase type platform, we've only started building it in March. January, we incorporated the company and we did some fundraising. I took a bit of a break. I had a holiday, which I hadn't had in a while. So really, the business started in January. The platform started in March. The real-time server, you can look back. The code probably started around, I think around July last year or August last year. And that one I was iterating on just incrementally in my previous startup.
Oh, okay. Cool. And so I think the next question will be like, you have a pricing there, right? If you have an interesting pricing point over there, like $5, and then it's a committee, and then it's an enterprise, do you want to share about how it works? So the screen, maybe you can say the screen. Yeah.
I think I'm probably a little bit idealistic. I thought maybe, you know,
it's kind of unique. Yeah.
So our Hacker News post got 1,000 upvotes, and it stayed there for 24 hours. And then I think, let me look what our, I think in terms of contributors, Firebase has something like $40 or something like that.
Yep.
So it's not $73 a month. So thank you to all 9 of these people if you're watching this, because that's pretty incredible. But yeah, our pricing on on our thing is just probably a bit idealistic. We were hoping that maybe the community would rally behind it, but it's expected. So from here, we will start having to charge. There's no way we can support thousands of databases without funding them somehow. But yeah, and don't worry about this. Get on the monthly investors list, because I'll be taking that off. It was way too much admin for me to write these emails. But yeah, we will do pricing. We don't know how we'll price at the moment, but probably I saw a few comments here about bill shock. We want to avoid that. We don't want you to have some surge, but at the same time, we want you to be able to kind of scale to zero. If you're not using your app, hopefully we can do something where, either we've got enough revenue that we can support, indie developers, and we can scale to zero. We just don't know. We have to build a sustainable business, but we'll do it in the best possible way that we can as an open source business.
Okay. Actually, the reason is like pricing is it's kind of unique. So I think this itself are going to attract a couple of people to come and like help you to contribute to this huge. Firebase is there for quite some time. Everyone love it, but then end of the day, it's a corporate world anyway, so they're going to try to make money. So
yeah, and Firebase is an amazing tool. I got to say, like, if you want to get started with something, yeah, we talked to, I think, around 50 developers while we were launching the first few stages, and everyone said, yeah, Postgres, best database. But then they would say, yeah, but I used Firebase because it was just easier. And that's really the problem we're trying to solve. We know that Postgres is the best database. We want to make it as easy or easier than Firebase, but really Firebase is pretty awesome, pretty powerful. It's got everything you need until you get to a stage where you scale too big.
The scalability problem.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have one more question. So database plus hosting still under one pricing plan?
Yeah. We'll probably lump it all together. We don't know, like, for example, if you saw at the start, we've got the sort of Airtable type view. We're thinking as well that maybe you might, at some stage, once this is completely, refined, you might want to invite your team members, like your non-techies to it. So we might even be able to charge more on a per user basis. It's really like we want to price it in the way that you get value, or you take value from us. So I think what we'll have is just several small tiers. It's just really, we haven't even thought about it at this stage. It's just, yeah, we'll do what we can to keep it free for indie developers, and then enough to support another tier that we make enough money to support those indie developers.
Okay, pretty cool. So I think we're almost to the end. So maybe I can ask the last question. So how do you think the tech community can help you? And contributing is one of it. And then the next question will be like, what next for you after the YC? And like, it's gonna be a long journey for you, right? For the YC, right? Tiring journey. So yeah. Yes, any plans?
Yeah. Well, no. I love to build. So for me, it's just more building. And finally, my previous two startups, if you know them, they're kind of like working in the services marketplace, and they're very value driven. But of course, I'm a techie, so I want to build tech as well. So finally, like, this is my one. I chatted to my previous co-founder, and we always knew that at some stage I'd build a more tech business. So yeah, I still am with Nimbus. Like I still support them, but yeah, this is really like my dream business. So I'll just be building this probably for the next 10 years. Happy sitting in my studio apartment building nonstop. But in terms of what the community can do, just use it. Use it patiently. Give us some feedback while we're in alpha. If you think of some cool things to implement, just tell us. Whatever you need. We had like some amazing things. I showed like a little feedback widget up the top. We get some incredible feedback from that. We get people emailing in saying, giving us the full rundown of how they're going to use it. This is actually really useful for us because we can say, all right, these are the features that people need. So yeah, just keep in touch with us. Basically, follow us on on Twitter, promote us if you want. If you think what we're doing is good, then any promotion is great, and just word of mouth is also nice.
Yep. So if you want to like request for a feature, or we want to like give a feedback, right? How do we reach out to you?
Yeah, if you want, you can email me directly if you want. It's couple@supabase.io. But while we're in alpha, it's easiest if you want to get one of like all of us. Just get alpha@supabase.io.
You want to share a screen on it? Like, is there anything to share on the screen? Easy for them.
I think actually, if I jump in here, when you come to when you first land on here, you'll see this big alpha. So if you just do alpha@supabase.io, that'll come to both myself and my co-founder. And then from there, we will, we'll keep in touch. And if you really want to help contribute, just reach out to me, and I'll literally, if you start, forking and contributing to one of our repositories, I'll add you to our Slack as a guest, and we can just chat directly there.
Yep. I think, we have one more question, last question. Let me put this.
Yeah. So Super is meant to combine Firebase plus real-time database plus Firestore plus Cloud Functions. As for me, I'm just too lazy to maintain 2 types of database. You don't need Cloud Functions in idealism. Yeah, exactly. Actually, so this is another one that we think that we'll do is, the Cloud Functions are quite cool. You can bake them in, like you can bake your logic into like your endpoints. We actually give you an API like a proxy. We'll probably on that proxy, which is going to be a globally distributed proxy, like literally across the world, we'll probably give you the ability to write functions on the edge. So the functions themselves will be running right on the edge, and you can run them there. So I don't know if that answers the question, but really, we're aiming to be a sort of full stack. You don't need anything else unless you've got some really bizarre requirements. We'll try to handle everything, including the storage if you need it. Probably not hosting. I recommend Netlify if you do static hosting, but otherwise we'll be a direct replacement for Firebase. And we also at some stage will build a connector to Firebase so that you can migrate off. Or migrate to as well. We don't care. We want to make it easy, no lock-in. So we'll build some migration tools for various different systems.
Pretty cool. Okay, I think if any more questions. Okay, no more questions. And I think you can still stay. I will probably end the broadcast. And then you can still stay in the call. Okay, all right. So guys, I think we pretty much came to the end, and once again, thanks to Couple for joining us tonight and sharing a good stuff about Supabase and exciting stuff. I think it's very important as we as a tech community to actually contribute back and help theirs, like small guys, to actually grow, and the same way like if we help, they can grow and we create more competitors, and we actually useful for us in the long term. So any last word, Couple? You want to say
No, I just want to say thanks for dialing in. It'd be awesome to meet you guys at some point when all this craziness ends. Maybe I can come back to Malaysia and actually do a chat there.
Yeah, usually for KLJS, we get like up to like 80 to 90 people in every meetup. So sometimes it came to 100 as well. So
Wow,
okay.
cool.
And all right, guys, I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you for joining us. If any question, just reach out to Couple, and if you have any question for me or give me feedback, anything, you know where to reach out. Just ping me on Facebook or anywhere, like Messenger also is fine. And if you haven't joined the KualaLumpurJS group, go search on Facebook, KualaLumpurJS, one group, and just join it. And see you guys. Stay safe. I know today is a freedom for you guys in Malaysia, so have fun, man. See you guys.